May 14th, 1948. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. David Ben-Gurion, a man whose name would soon be synonymous with a nation, stands at the Tel Aviv Museum. He's ready, finally, to proclaim the first Jewish state in 2 millennia. Can you even imagine that moment? The weight of history, the hopes of generations, all culminating right then. But here's the kicker. Inside that very hall, the room is a pressure cooker. Half the signers are still shouting at one another, their voices echoing off the museum walls. On one side, the secularists, adamant that the word God should be erased forever. On the other, the religious faction, refusing to sign unless it's put back in. It's a standoff. The Declaration itself, this monumental document, is literally blank in places because the fight over just 4 sentences has stalled the birth of a nation. If they walk out now, if this fragile coalition shatters, their asterisk is no Israel. The dream, for now, remains just that. In the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on that incredible brawl. You'll learn exactly how that impossible argument was settled, who blinked first, and why the compromise they hammered out still shapes every Israeli election, every army exemption, and even the bus scheduled today. It's a story of high-stakes drama, political cunning, and the birth of a nation against all odds. The clock is ticking relentlessly. The British Mandate, the last vestige of colonial rule, is set to expire at midnight. Imagine the pressure. Washington is practically begging Ben-Gurion to wait, pleading for a delay, fearful of the inevitable war. Moscow, meanwhile, is hinting it will recognize a new state the second it exists, a tempting offer in a world divided. And the Arab armies, they're not waiting for diplomatic niceties. They're already moving, massing on the borders, ready to strike. The air is thick with anticipation and dread. Inside the People's Council, the tension is palpable. The secular Map-I party, Ben-Gurion's own, holds the majority, but here's the twist. The religious Mizrahi party holds the pen. Their signatures are crucial. Without them, Britain could tell the UN the Jews can't even agree on a greeting card, let alone the foundations of a country. Ben-Gurion, ever the pragmatist, had typed his own draft that very morning. He'd meticulously omitted words like Torah, prophets, and Redeemer of Israel, trying to bridge the divide. A rabbi, Fishman Mammon, a formidable figure, threatens to walk out, taking his entire block with him if any religious language is omitted. On the flip side, Aharon Becker, the powerful trade union boss, threatens to walk if any asterisk theology is restored. It's a classic catch-22. The meeting is recessed at 1 p.m. 5 hours. That's all they have to solve a 2,000-year-old argument. To reconcile millennia of religious tradition with modern secular aspirations, all while the world watches and waits. The clock keeps ticking. Enter Pinchas Rosen, a brilliant lawyer with a deep admiration for the American Constitution. He's tasked with finding a solution, a linguistic tightrope walk. He proposes a phrase, placing our trust in the Rock of Israel. It's a coded nod. It's a clever workaround for God without actually saying the word. Ingenious, right? The secularists cheer, relieved. Finally, a way forward. But the Orthodox members, they're not having it.
Okay.
Rocks, they scoff, are what you throw at dogs, not a reference to the divine. The room erupts again. The very ambiguity meant to unite them now threatens to tear them apart. Then, Moshe Sharat, another key figure, tries his hand, rewriting the line in formal diplomatic French. The problem? Nobody can translate it fast enough, let alone agree on its theological implications. It's a beautiful mess. Ben-Gurion, seeing precious minutes slip away, grabs the page himself. He crosses out rock. With a decisive stroke, he inserts the Rock of Israel, capital R. He declares, "This can mean God to you and history to me." Now, Sin, it's a masterful stroke of political genius, a compromise allowing for dual interpretations. But 2 more hours have been lost in this agonizing debate. Outside, the typing pool is on standby, their fingers poised over the keys. Every key punch echoes like a gunshot in the corridor, a reminder of the impending deadline. The tension is almost unbearable. It's 4:15 p.m. Rabbi Yitzhak Levin, his face etched with conviction, rises slowly. Without explicit mention of our biblical heritage, he states, his voice firm, "I cannot sanctify this document with my name." And then, the unthinkable, 6 others begin to follow him toward the door. The dream is teetering on the brink. Ben-Gurion, ever the master strategist, knows this is his last card. He plays it. He promises, right there, on the spot, that the very first act of the provisional government will be to exempt yeshiva students from army service. It's a stunning concession, a policy invented in a hallway born out of desperation that will echo through generations. This isn't just a promise. It's the first domestic policy of the future state. Levin hesitates, his hand on the door. Ben-Gurion, sensing the opportunity, adds a second carrot. Saturday bus lines inside religious neighborhoods will be limited, respecting the Sabbath. It's a handshake deal. No paper, no recording, just the pressure of the moment and the solemnity of witnesses. Levin turns. He nods. They walk back in. The room, gripped by silence moments before, erupts in applause. But it's not just applause. It sounds suspiciously like relief, a collective exhale of breath held for far too long. The nation, for now, is saved. You'd think the drama was over, right? Not quite. The ink isn't even dry on those compromises when a new battle erupts. Left-wing members demand the text explicitly guarantee Israel will be a democracy. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But Ben-Gurion, always thinking several steps ahead, sees a Cold War calculation. If the Soviets recognize the new state, democracy could be read as explicitly anti-Soviet, a provocative statement in a deeply fractured world. It could jeopardize crucial international support. So, he deletes it, betting that democratic values are self-evident, inherent in the very idea of a modern state. He's prioritizing immediate diplomatic maneuvering over explicit ideological declaration. He also deletes precise borders. Why? Because diplomats warn that tomorrow's war, which everyone knows is coming, may redraw the map entirely. Pinning down borders now would be foolish, limiting their strategic options. By 4:30 p.m., the text is finally frozen. Stenographers rush to mimeograph 300 copies. The ink is still wet on the first one handed to Ben-Gurion. He signs at 4:37. By 4:50, 24 others have signed, their names forever linked to this historic document. 3 more, trapped in besieged Jerusalem, will add their names days later, under fire. If you're finding this nuts and bolts version of 1948 wilder, more complex, and frankly, more human than the polished textbook one, then you absolutely need to hit subscribe. Because next week, we're going to show you exactly how that handshake in the hallway still shapes Israeli politics. Every single budget cycle, every single day. It's not just history, it's the blueprint, the final countdown. At 6 p.m., radio technicians are frantically running cables across the stage, preparing for the broadcast that will announce the birth of a nation to a waiting world. The declaration itself is surprisingly short, just 979 words in Hebrew, but it's packed with 2,000 years of citations. The Bible, the Balfour Declaration, the League Mandate, the UN Resolution 181. It's a tapestry woven from ancient prophecy and modern international law. A powerful justification for their audacious claim. Gurion, a man who has just navigated the most treacherous political waters imaginable, reads in a calm, steady baritone. Outside, thousands have gathered in what used to be a dusty parking lot, straining to hear the words that will define their future. When he pronounces the phrase, "Trust in the Rock of Israel," it's a moment of beautiful ambiguity. Secular listeners hear geology, a nod to the enduring land itself. Religious listeners hear theology, a direct invocation of the divine, and history. History records consensus, a fragile but vital agreement that allowed them to move forward. At 6:11 p.m., the broadcast ends, and in a strange, almost poetic moment, Tel Aviv's power grid dims for a second as every cafe radio switches back to music, as if the city itself is taking a collective breath. People spill into the streets, dancing, singing, their joy unconfined. But even amidst the celebration, there's a nervous glance at the sky. Because Egyptian Spitfires are already airborne. The party, as joyous as it is, will be short-lived. Before the ink even has a chance to dry on that declaration, the inevitable happens. Egyptian bombers appear over the southern neighborhoods, their dark silhouettes a chilling omen. The signers, these architects of a new nation, rush to shelters. One of them, clutching the original parchment, rolled carefully like a college diploma, protecting it from the nascent war. Over the next 10 brutal months, the compromises forged in that hall will be stress-tested, pushed to their absolute limits. Those yeshiva students promised exemption ride supply trucks to the front, but they don't carry rifles. Buses still run on Saturday, but fewer of them, a quiet acknowledgement of the religious concession. The word God, so fiercely debated, appears on coins, on stamps, and on ovufus cards, yet never in the promised Constitution that to this day has never arrived. Every later coalition fight every argument about who is a Jew, who serves in the army, who marries whom. What constitutes a kosher state traces its roots directly back to the concessions accepted or refused that afternoon. These weren't just temporary fixes. They were the genetic code of the new state embedded in its very foundation. The secret fight wasn't just a historical footnote. It was the origin story of Israel's enduring internal debates, a complex legacy that continues to shape its identity. Fast forward to today. Israel, uniquely among modern democracies, still has no single written constitution. Why? Because the very same questions that almost tore apart the People's Council in 1948 versus state, majority rule versus minority rights, the role of tradition in a modern society still split cabinets, still ignite passionate debates, still define the political landscape. That exemption for yeshiva students, that desperate promise made in a hallway. It has ballooned from a mere 400 in 1948 to well over 60,000 today, igniting mass protests and fueling deep societal divisions. The phrase Rock of Israel, that beautifully ambiguous compromise, shows up in every new citizen's oath. And every interpreter, to this day, still decides what it truly means to them. And here's a powerful testament to its enduring relevance. In 2023, the Supreme Court actually cited the 1948 debate, the very arguments we've just discussed, in a landmark ruling on conscription. This isn't just dusty history. It proves that the Declaration of Independence is a living argument, a dynamic document, more than just a relic of the past. So, when you next hear someone say that politics in Israel is complicated, remember this story. Remember that it was complicated, profoundly so, before the state even existed. Yes. And that very complication, that intricate web of compromise and conviction, is literally the first thing its founders signed. It's not a flaw. It's the very fabric of the nation. Curious how those handwritten edits looked. How Ben-Gurion's furious red lines changed the course of history. We've posted photos of his original draft with all those angry marks. You'll find the link right there in the description below. While you're there, why not drop a comment? We want to know, would you have risked delaying independence to get the wording absolutely perfect? Or would you have signed anything at all, just to get that flag up? It's a tough choice, isn't it? The birth certificate of Israel wasn't some pristine, divinely inspired text. Far from it. It was written in pencil, argued over in a cacophony of Yiddish, Hebrew, and lawyer English, and finished with a gritty, backroom deal that traded army exemptions for divine ambiguity. It wasn't destiny neatly unfolding. It was a last-second, nail-biting compromise between people who disagreed on almost everything. That is, except one fundamental idea that Jews, after the horrors of the Holocaust, desperately needed a home. And the paperwork, however imperfect, simply could not wait. That moment, May 14th, 4:37 p.m., didn't just create a state. It embedded every future fight, every profound societal debate. Deep inside its very DNA, understanding that secret fight, that foundational struggle, doesn't just explain Israel's past. It hands you the decoder ring for tomorrow's headlines, for understanding the complexities you see playing out today. So next time you see a debate about buses on Saturday, or who serves in the army, or the delicate balance between religion and state, remember, it all started with a blank piece of paper, a ticking clock, and a room full of brilliant, passionate, and deeply divided people who almost walked out on the chance to argue for the next 75 years inside the country. They were about to invent asterisk. What an incredible, messy human story.